everybody. My name is Todor Mikhailov, and I'm from the LunchFit team. Well, we traveled a lot last couple of weeks. We were in 3 cities, New York, Boston, we are now in San Francisco. We eat 3 times a day, and every time we are going to a different place. We pick the menu, and we see a lot of options to pick from. We stare for 1 or 2 minutes, and we pick one. Well, that's great, but this doesn't work for Didi. Didi is our teammate. She is a vegetarian, and she has egg allergy. She has to be very careful when she picks her food. But Didi is not alone. There are 54 million people in the United States that have unavoidable food restrictions, which means that they have to be very careful about their food. And these are people with gluten intolerance, with diabetes, and other allergies. That's why we created LunchFit. LunchFit is a mobile application that helps people find food in the restaurants nearby that fits their dietary needs by providing meal nutrition data. So how does it work? Our customers sign up for the service, select their dietary needs, and when they are looking for a food nearby, they are selecting one button and they are listed with the foods available nearby. We are showing all food that fits the dietary needs using an artificial intelligence algorithm that compares nutrition data and the dietary needs. And our users are happy. So how we do this? We need a lot of data for this. There are 300,000 menus of restaurants listed all over the web, and we're going to use an information retrieval and data extraction techniques to gather this information in our system. After that, we are using artificial intelligence algorithms to estimate nutrition data. We are going to use a crowdsource data of our users to improve our data. So who are our customers? Our paying customers are going to be venues and special food manufacturers that are interested in this market of 54 million people with unavoidable food restrictions and 200 million people in the United States with health-aware food. So what is our revenue model? We're going to publish information about restaurants for free. We're getting it using our technology, and we're going to list their menu and data nutrition information. But we're going to charge our customers for a monthly subscription of about $20 for branding their profiles and answering to their users. We are going to have a revenue stream for advertising from our restaurants that are going to be listed. They are going to be food manufacturers to advertise in our platform their health products. So what is our go-to-market strategy? In the 6th month, we are going to have a ready MVP for testing. We are going to have 50,000 restaurants data, and we are going to launch here in San Francisco as there are a lot of venues offering food for special needs. Our early adopters are going to be gluten-free, as this is the large group in our target. And in the end of the year, we are going to have already paying customers. In year 2, we're going national, covering 250 restaurants, gathering their data and their nutrition info. And in tier 3 and tier 4, we're going global, gathering information about restaurants all over the world and targeting not only people that need it, but people that are health aware. So our projections say that we are going to break even in the 2nd year, and we are going to have 9% of profit after year 3. We have competition. We all know Yelp, Foursquare, Urban Spoon. They are services that offer a similar service to all people that need to find food. But we have a niche market. We have people with real need, with real healthy needs. We're going to offer detailed menu information and nutrition info that these services do not provide. And we're going to have a food-centric search, which means that instead of looking for restaurants nearby, we're looking for healthy food, and by selecting the food, we are choosing our restaurant. And can we do this? Our team consists currently of 4 people. George is a finance expert. He has a lot of experience, and he's very good in math. Mila started several startups, and she's very good in business development. I'm a software engineer with more than 8 years of experience and currently studying data mining and information retrieval. Didi is our nutrition knowledge, and she has special dietary behavior. So we are looking for $300,000 that we're going to use first year for our research and development, gathering data, building MVP, and our marketing and sales campaigns. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So a couple of quick observations. One, I thought starting with we did some market research is always a good thing to do. Gives your investor audience, some comfort that you've gone out, you've done some survey work, given a couple of quick anecdotes. I think the transition into what the business was good. My big question on the business is when you describe it, you talk about we go get menus, we then figure out the ingredients, and we use some crowdsource. The figuring out the ingredients, it kind of left me hanging a little bit for, okay, I heard artificial intelligence, which means it's a probabilistic kind of thing, that maybe it's got this, maybe it doesn't. For me, the whole pitch hangs on this, right? If you can actually convince me that that, Ben's Eatery down the street doesn't use gluten in XYZ, I'll feel much, much better. Now, maybe that you can get that from the information, but if it's deductive, I think you run into a big problem of you're going to get bad reviews of they told me it was gluten-free and it wasn't, right? So I don't know how you solve that problem, and maybe there is already an answer, but that was the first thing that jumped out at me as the thing to focus on. Once I got past that, everything else kind of made sense, right? How you go to market, it's a two-sided market, right? You've got the restaurateurs on one side, the food manufacturers on the other. I do think that when you get to the competition, you presented the competition, but then you sort of dismissed it with, and there's a lot of competition, but it's okay, we're niche. I think you have to be more impactful. And you actually had really good, advantages, right? We do focus on a niche. It's going to be about nutrition and ingredients, and again, I come back to make sure that you actually have a story there. And then the search capability is being food-centric. I think this all starts with it's an application. So the experience the customer has, if you give them bad data in any way, it's really going to be a problem for you. So I don't know if you guys have looked at that specifically, and if there's an answer to it, I'd love to know it, because maybe I'm down a rat hole. But.
Yeah. No, that's very good commentary, because this hits home for my wife and I, because our son, who's 5 years old, has nut allergies, and it's an issue. But my wife is, before we go to a restaurant, we have to make absolutely sure. And the restaurants sometimes don't even know that there's nuts.
Well, they're like, it's fine, but we use peanut oil for the fish.
Exactly.
And you got a little bit of peanut oil.
And it's shocking how they sometimes don't even know, and my wife will catch it. So I don't know how you ensure, sort of from an accuracy, reliability perspective, how this data is going to be gathered. Clearly, OpenTable, if you go on there, and I use OpenTable quite a bit, the menus are available to kind of review, and they'll make statements, but I think, so that's one aspect that he outlined, that was one of my sort of issues. The second thing is, how do you, the revenue model. Restaurants are very difficult to sort of penetrate when you're asking them. They're sort of like physician practices. It's really tough, unless you can drive traffic, to each of these restaurants. And we know, just based on our experience dealing with, on the investment fund. So I would sort of think about the revenue model, initially, and how that's going to work. But I think overall, I think you did a good job in terms of the pay. I get it. I think there definitely is sort of a need out there, and I like the niche sort of market opportunity. You just got to figure out, in terms of how Paul laid it out, how you're going to ensure this accuracy and reliability, because there's also possibly some liability aspects to it, that you got to think about. But clearly for a number of parents out there, and even for folks, you've got this huge gluten-free sort of trend, but I think the nut allergy is really a significant issue for a number of parents. The food manufacturers, that's an interesting sort of opportunity from a revenue perspective. I researched that a little bit more because I think they'd be more prone to pay something versus the restaurants.
I'm sorry, are the restaurants paying here? Because I thought I heard the user pays $20 a month.
No,
The restaurant has to pay $20 a month.
So that's what,
Okay.
that's always a typical, or that's something you need to sort of think through. And then lastly, since this is sort of a medical issue, at times I've seen various companies, they'll get sponsored by an association or some sort of medical, something that sort of gives you credibility. And that's something you want to sort of think about. Or have an advisory board, that are sort of medically sort of, medical advisory board or someone in fitness and what have you. It's something to think about. But I think overall it was a good presentation.
So I'll add on to that and then go back here, but so something like you talked about diabetes, they have their own associations. If you got attached to them and they could promote your brand, that goes much further than trying to do it yourselves and try to go into the space. So overall, I always start macro. Overall, I like it a lot. So I live down in LA. The cool thing about this is you can follow trends very quickly. If you have the data and you have unfortunately it's a little ambiguous, I don't know how it works, but if you're able to mine it for multiple trends down the road, you can stay ahead of everything. Paleo is the big thing right now, right, down in LA. Well, you can stay ahead of those if you have all of this data, so that's really good. So the good thing is you left me wanting more, but I need to know a lot more. That's the downside to it. So I'll focus on, since everything they talked about, I agree with 100%. I guess my biggest takeaway was I don't get the revenue model working for the break even that you shared. So you said $300,000 break even within a year is what you're looking for.
No.
You said a year or two. Second year, yeah. So I'd be curious if your primary source, because you didn't say it on here, but it says it here that you're doing freemium. So it means you're going to try to onboard these people for no cost to them. Try to ramp them up to pay, which is very difficult with small organizations like restaurants, unless you can get chains to do it. So they're unlikely to pay or want to pay. How are you actually breaking even that fast? Would be the big, without doing huge volume and growing so quickly that you have to analyze all that data. So the thing that I had the most question about is, because you talked about your revenue model, then you showed a graph really quickly, but then it was only up there for like 2 seconds, so I couldn't see exactly how you were trying to do the crossover of cost and revenue. It seemed aggressive to me, unless you could go after other revenue sources, like looking at the food manufacturers. I agree. I think that's a much better way to go, because they would definitely put your brand on something, especially because then they can promote that to restaurants. Overall, I think it's an awesome idea. I actually hate every one of your competitors because I think they're a terrible application. They do very little. They do a lot of it, but they don't do a very poor job. So I love the concept. More information.
Okay.
So I had two just other follow-ons that I was thinking of. One is, you talked about this gluten-free as your insertion point.
Yeah.
I think you got to have a list of, 10 other opportunities that you could go pursue, because it's not enough to target just the gluten-free audience. I mean, I get that there could be X millions of people, but when you start skinning it down to, in the city of San Francisco, you might end up with, 400 people or 4,000 people or, whatever. It's just not, you're going to have a broader target audience, and I think it's segmented by what their dietary issue is. The other thing is you need to get sponsors. So to the point of, go get associations and all that, I think what we're seeing in more of these consumer-driven businesses is you have advocates that are users, right? So in this case, you call them gluties, right? They're the gluten people. They go out, they tell you the best food for if you need to have gluten-free. You got to come up with something like that. So we have an e-commerce business, and it's we call them mavens, right? It's a beauty business, and it's incredible the following that these like Uber mavens get, because they go and they talk about it, and you may not have blogs and all that kind of stuff, but they're influential on your app, and somehow you have to get them. You have to integrate that into your app so that people can hear some real feedback. And initially you might pay these people, right? So we have a college app where we pay people like a keg of beer a week, and they go and round up 2,000 of their best friends, and it's incredible for next to nothing. We get incredible traction. So you gotta sort of think about how you might do that in this case, right? Go get some people to sponsor some free foods and, you know, cupcakes without whatever, and, you know, give them out for free, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool.
Good job. Thank you.
All right, thank you.